Hey friends, Laravel 9 is out. That's it. That's all the introduction you need. Now let's dive into it and see what we got. Let's first start with a couple of major changes related to the framework dependencies. Laravel 9 has migrated from FlySystem version 1 to FlySystem version 3. If you don't know, FlySystem is the library that powers all of the file manipulation methods provided by the storage facade in Laravel. And in late 2020, FlySystem was rewritten from the ground up to bring several new features and use some of the language features of PHP 7. In Laravel 9, we have tried to make the upgrade as seamless as possible. However, some changes may be required within your application. First, you need to require version 3 of the AWS S3 adapter and the SFTP adapter if you use them in your application. Next, write operations such as put, write stream, and some other operations will now overwrite existing files. If you do not want to overwrite, you will need to manually check for the file's existence before performing any of the mentioned operations. Also, attempting to read from a file that doesn't exist now returns null. It used to throw an exception in Laravel 8. And finally, if you are registering custom file system drivers, you need to update your extension to return an instance of file system adapter instead of file system. You can find more details in the Laravel 9 upgrade guide, so make sure you check it out. Another large change in Laravel 9 is the transition from SwiftMailer to SymphonyMailer. Well, SwiftMailer is no longer maintained as of December 2021, and Laravel has been relying on it for all its mail sending capabilities. We have tried also in this change, we have tried to make this as seamless as possible transitioning from the two libraries, but we recommend that you check the Laravel 9 upgrade guide to ensure that all your interactions with the mailer component are up to date. Mainly, you will need to replace some of your application dependencies to be able to send mail via AWS SES, Mailgun, and Postmark. Also, some of the methods have been renamed. Most of these methods are low-level methods used to interact with SymphonyMailer and previously SwiftMailer directly. So you may not need or you may not commonly use them within your Laravel applications. But for example, if you use the with_Swift_message method to set custom headers in your mailer, you need to replace it with the new with_Symphony_message method. Again, check the Laravel 9 upgrade guide for the full list of methods that changed and all the other changes required for the upgrade. Now, let's get to the new features. Let's get to the fun parts. In Laravel 9, the failed drops database table stores information about your failed queue drops. This table can become quite large and eat a lot of space. We have seen that reported several times. So periodically cleaning up the table is a smart move. And Laravel already has the PHP artisan queue flush command that will delete all the entries in the table. But it makes more sense to delete only the old entries, not the entire table. And for that reason, Laravel 9 comes with a new hours option on the queue flush command, and that option can be used to configure the number of hours to retain failed drop data in the database. In this example, all failed drops older than 24 hours will be removed from the table. Only the most recent drops will remain. Make sure to register this command in a scheduled job to ensure your failed drops table doesn't grow too much and eat all your disk space. Back in April, Laravel 8.37 came with anonymous migration support, which solves an issue when migration class names collision. The problem happens when multiple migration files have the same class name and you try to migrate the database from scratch. And the solution was to use anonymous classes instead of named classes. In Laravel 9, the migration stops now use anonymous classes by default. When you run PHP artisan make migration, the class created will be an anonymous class. Now, you can create migrations without worrying about collisioning with older migrations with the same name. Most of you know that Laravel ships with an expressive HTTP client that's spelled around the Guzzle HTTP client. In Guzzle, if the request you are trying to make doesn't receive a response, the process will completely freeze. And if the request was made from inside a queue job, the worker will freeze and won't even respond to the timeout signal. To deal with this issue, the HTTP client in Laravel 9 will have a default timeout of 30 seconds. This timeout will force Guzzle to stop waiting for a response and throw an exception that you can handle by the Laravel exception handler like all other exceptions. Forcing a timeout like this will ensure that workers skip the job that has a stuck Guzzle request and move on to processing other jobs. If you want to override this default behavior, you can use the timeout method on the client before sending any request. In this example here, the client will wait for 60 seconds before throwing an exception. In all cases, we don't recommend disabling this default timeout as it may cause serious issues for your applications running in production, especially to your queued jobs. Here is a neat quality of life improvement for people who use the route list artisan command. In Laravel 9, we have refreshed the look of the route list command completely. Check this out. It's much cleaner than the previous version of the command. You can see the route method, the controller action, and the route name. You can also see the domain if there is a special domain configuration on the route. We hope you like the new look as much as we do. This command has been around for so many years, and we are happy it finally has a new refreshed modern look. Speaking of routes in Laravel 9, you may now use the controller method to define the common controller for all the routes within the group, using the controller method of the route facade. This method accepts the name of the controller class. Then, when defining the routes inside the group, you only need to provide the controller method that they invoke. Here, for example, the /orders/id route will invoke the show method of the order controller class, and the orders route will invoke the store method of the order controller class. I don't know about you, but for me, I think that it makes defining routes much easier and also increases the readability of long routes files. What do you think? Another cool addition in Laravel 9 is the ability to use enums in route bindings. PHP 8.1 added support for enumerations. An enumeration, or an enum for short, is an enumerated type that has a fixed number of possible values. This enum, for example, has two possible values, shipped and delivered. In Laravel 9, you can use an enum in your implicit route bindings, and Laravel will resolve the enum in your route action. In this route action, the status variable will hold an instance of the status enum, and the route will respond with 404 if the given value doesn't match any of the values that the enum accepts. You should know though that this only works with backed enums, not basic enums. Backed enums have equivalent scalar values for each value it supports. Basic enums, on the other hand, doesn't have that. So make sure your enums are backed enums if you want to use them in implicit bindings. Alright, here is one more change in Laravel 9. In previous versions of Laravel, unvalidated array keys were returned by default in the validator output. Here, for example, the input the validator receives is an array of users, each with the name and an ID. In the validation rules, we only validate the username. In previous versions of Laravel, the output from this validate method will be an array that includes the name key as well as the ID key, even though we didn't add the ID key in the validation rules. In Laravel 9, only the keys included in the validation rules will be included in the output. Typically, this behavior is the most expected behavior, and people have been reporting the old behavior as a bug for a long time. However, if you still prefer the old behavior, you need to call the include unvalidated array keys method in the boot method of any of your service providers. But given the number of reports considering the old behavior as a bug, I'm not sure how many people will still prefer that old behavior. We have added this method for convenience anyway. So you decide if you want or if you prefer the old behavior or the new behavior. Laravel ships with built-in mechanisms to use separate read and write database connections. This is very useful when you have database replication configured in your infrastructure. It also ships with the sticky database connection option. This option makes Laravel switch to reading from the write connection if it detects any write operation in the current user session. That way, your application will be able to read the new data immediately even if there is a replication lag. In Laravel 9, the model fresh and refresh methods will always read from the write connection even if there hasn't been any writes in the current session. Why? Well, it's expected from these methods to return a very fresh instance of the model. So it makes sense to always use the write connection when calling them, so the results are guaranteed to be fresh. What do you think? And that's all I have for you in this video, but that's not everything in Laravel 9. Make sure to check the release notes on the official Laravel website for the full list of new additions. Also, check the upgrade guide for a step-by-step instructions on how to upgrade your Laravel 8 application to Laravel 9. I will see you in the next video. Have a good day.